The first thing that I want to point out is, when women come to me and they have lost their libido, a lot of the times it happens after they have children. So what the fuck is going on here?
Welcome to the Mindful Method podcast, where we don't just fill your ears, we fill your mind with the tools to enhance your emotional and physical reality. I'm your host, Jordana Sade, here to guide you on this journey of the body-brain connection and help you take your power back to create the life you've always wanted. So grab a seat, because class is in session and our method is on the syllabus. Here at the Mindful Clinic, we're not just changing your mind, we're changing your life. One mindful moment at a time.
Hey guys, it's me. Welcome back to another episode of the Mindful Method podcast. I'm so excited to talk to you guys about this very sensual and exciting topic. This is something I've been deep diving in for a few years now. I'll tell you my own story in a moment, but we are going to talk about libido and recovering it. It's going to be a little bit female biased, I'd say, considering I know my own parts and hormones much better than the opposite sex. But if you are a male and you're listening to this, I think it might be beneficial too, even just within a partnership, and how to understand how to bring that out in your partner. So I'll start with my own spiel. Essentially, growing up, I had a very, very high libido. I remember being a little girl and like watching movies with my family and feeling butterflies in my stomach and not understanding why when people were kissing. And I was like, oh my God, what's going on? But really, I was just horny and I had no idea. And obviously, I grew up Catholic, so there's a lot of Catholic guilt. And especially with girls, there's a lot of like, it's very taboo to touch yourself or to be sexual. And so I kind of grew up with that connotation. But by the time I was like 13, I was ready to go. I lost my virginity very early, and I had a long-term boyfriend at that time as well. So I really kind of like sexualized myself. And I think that at that point too, a lot of how I received love and received validation was through the opposite sex being attracted to me. So that's kind of a whole other story. But anyways, I had a very, very high libido growing up, all the way, even like through my addiction, all the way up until I had children. So I remember when I had my first son, it was a C-section. And after that, you have to wait like 6 weeks before you can have sex. And I was just desperate to have sex. Like I couldn't even wait. But a few months after that, I started to not really be interested in having sex. And granted, like, it really wasn't about my partner at that time. It really was about me. And at that time too, I was really trying to lose a lot of weight. So the baby weight. So I was exercising a lot and I probably wasn't eating properly. So there were like many factors that went into this. But a couple of months later, about 9 months later, I lost my period. And it took me about 2 years to recover and get it back. So already there are like big warning signs here that are related to our libido. And I had no desire at all. And in fact, my poor husband at the time, he would often instigate and want to have sex. And I would be like, I just wouldn't want to. I would be like, get off me, or like, there's just other shit that I have to do. And all these other things took priority over like my own sensuality. And so it really did not get recovered at all. And even up until I had my second child, again by C-section. And right after I had my second child, I started working with Dr. Taggy because I was doing all the right things and the weight wasn't coming off, and it was so frustrating for me. And so when I started working with her, she asked me, how's your libido? And this is a question that I actually ask all of my clients in the intake session, because your libido will tell me a lot about how your hormones are functioning. If 9 times out of 10, the clients that come to me have a very, very low libido, and if they come to me and they have a very high libido, but they have all these hormonal issues, then the high libido is usually related to some emotional issue, very similar to how when I was younger, how I received validation and loved and knew that I was lovable was through sex, right? And so if it's super high, but we have hormonal dysfunction, I often categorize that as, there's been a trauma there, or that's how we know that we're sexy, we're lovable, we're chosen, we're desired. So she was talking to me about my libido, and I was like, I just don't have one. I don't know what to say. I've done it all, take all the supplements, I do all the things, and it's just not there. And she was like, that is not true. You reek of sensuality. And this is something that I often hear from people that have this kind of, I don't know, sensual energy. And I always have, and it's probably because I'm a Virgo. I think most Virgos are like that. But anyways, she started to introduce me to the balance of the masculine and feminine, and we started balancing my hormones. At that point, I was taking a certification in hormone therapy, not hormone replacement therapy, but through Dutch, which is the hormone company we use in the clinic. And I was learning a lot about how the hormones interact and what happens and what throws it off. And so just slowly, I started to recover my libido. And it, for the course of a year, it went from, let's say, a 0 to about a 4. Okay. So I was like pretty happy with this, but I still didn't want to have sex very often, and definitely not at the place where I'm at now. And a lot of that had to do with my marriage. And we can go into that in a very sensitive way later on. But now in my life, working on balancing the masculine and the feminine and doing the inner work that I'm going to talk about today actually really helped to recover that fire within me. And now it is unstoppable, let me tell you. Wow. Okay. So let me actually tell you some of the facts here. That's my story. But the first thing that I want to point out is, when women come to me and they have lost their libido, a lot of the times it happens after they have children. So what the fuck is going on here? Well, first of all, it is a very invasive surgery when they cut open our womb and take the baby out. And my son was an emergency C-section. So there was a lot of stress that was involved with that. I was terrified he was going to die. He had the cord wrapped around his neck. Like I don't think I've ever been so scared in my whole life. It was the first surgery I've ever had. And so there's a little literal like cutting into the womb, which is this very emotional and intense area for women. And after we have a baby, mothers' brains actually change in the sense where we are very, very hyper vigilant in how the fuck are we going to keep this baby safe? So there are neuronal networks and pathways that actually happen when we have a child that reconfigure to more of a primal state rather than a very like conscious human state. And so for a mother, your whole brain and body become about keeping this baby safe. And there's a lot of stress that's involved with that, especially I was a very young mother, right? So when we have a child, it's no longer about like, what are my passions and what are my hobbies and how am I having fun? And am I even happy? It's about like, oh my God, I'm losing sleep. I have to feed the baby. Do we have enough money for the baby? How are we going to pay the bills? Like there's all of these things that come into play. And if you are with a partner, so if you're a female or identifying female and you're with a partner that is in their masculine, then how the role should be is, the woman has the baby and her role becomes taking care of the baby. And then the masculine energy is really about like making sure the woman feels protected, provided for, held, like literally just held so that the woman can like do her thing. So right after I had my son, I went, first of all, right back to the gym and I went back to school. And so, we also moved back in with my parents. So I had that safety and security knowing that my parents weren't going to kick us out, but we weren't making any money. Like my husband wasn't working. And so there was a lot of stress on me and how am I going to become successful to be able to take care of this family? And so already the masculine and the feminine roles were very imbalanced. And when we have a masculine partner who just like covers everything, and, I'm speaking in a way that is a little bit fantastical, even if you have an incredible husband who works his ass off and, takes care and provides for you. If the woman is off work through the maternity leave, there might still be hesitations around money. And, that's going to make the woman not feel very safe because she's going to feel like she's in scarcity mode. So let me talk about the womb for a second. The womb in a woman, that's why we're called womans, right? The womb is this very sacred and exciting and special and magical place within us. It is the place where we create. women can create life, and we can bring life into this world, whether that's through a baby, or we can bring life into this world in the form of a project or in the form of manifesting something we desire. It really happens from this womb area, this sensual energy. And I have had an expert on womb work come in and talk, so maybe we can link that in the show notes below, because she definitely will do a much better job than me describing it. But what really, really, really helped for me in the course of the past year or two, really recovering my libido back to a place where like I am on fire, guys, was understanding the relationship between me and my womb. So for women, when we have unmet needs, and this can be anything between, things related to sex, but also unmet needs. And we're growing up and like mom is busy, dad is working, we don't get the unconditional love and attention that we desire, friends bully us or whatever it is. All of those unmet needs just go stored in our womb. They literally just get stored down there. And then we actually start to kind of self-abandon ourselves. So, we'll go, if a need, let's say, is sleep. This is a really rudimentary example, but if we need sleep, but we're binge watching a show, like that is an unmet need that we are not listening to our body. And that unmet need gets stored in our womb. And our womb goes like, this bitch is not fucking listening to me. The womb is where we have all of our power to bring things into our reality. And so when I started to make these connections and, hire the practitioners that I needed to and do the work that I needed to within my womb and my relationship to my womb, everything changed. And a lot, like huge, the biggest catalyst for losing my libido was that invasive surgery, that cutting into. I never like fully recovered from that because I didn't think I had to. I didn't think that I needed to like recover my relationship to my womb at that time of my life. It sounds so like woo woo, and spiritual, but like the truth is, of course, the mind and the body are connected. And of course, all of our organs, like even from Chinese medicine, all of our organs store energy and emotions. Like, the liver is anger, the gallbladder is worry, the kidneys are fear, and the lungs are grief. Yes. Womb work is probably the first thing that I would say in being able to reestablish a relationship with your body. There's many ways that you can do this, but like I said, I'm certainly not an expert. I only know based on the things that I've tried. And you can go on, you can even just go on YouTube and listen to like a womb frequency. There's so many on there. Or you can work with a practitioner. The woman that I interviewed, I know she takes on clients, Dr. Taggy, and I have been working on my womb, same with Jamie, my mentor, but I was doing womb healing and womb rejuvenating meditations. And when I first started doing it, I didn't really have this like relationship with my womb. And then as I started to do the womb meditations, and they are not sexual at all, they're actually kind of like indigenous, or a little bit clinical sometimes. There's a couple of them that I use, but as I started to do them more and more, I couldn't even get to the end of it without like wanting to masturbate. It was crazy. Like I was like, actually my vagina was like throbbing and so unbelievably ready to go. And that's kind of how I knew I was like literally reactivating, like turning the womb on. And so womb work is one solution. Let's go into the actual like hormones here, because I think it's important for you guys to understand. But when I run a Dutch test, the Dutch hormone test in my clinic, and if you're a client of mine, you can run the Dutch test at any point in time. And if you are not a client of mine, but you want to run the Dutch test, you just need to be in the membership. It's a super low cost for the membership. It's like $20 a month or something. But as long as you're in the membership, then I can kind of like take you on as a client and interpret your tests. But the Dutch test is an amazing test. It tells us everything from where the hormones are at, how they interact with one another, how they metabolize, how they are excreted or reabsorbed. It's an incredible test. But the main thing that we're looking at here when we talk about hormones related to womb work are testosterone, progesterone, and cortisol. Estrogen plays a role too, but I'll go into that in a sec. So when I open up a Dutch test and I see that testosterone is low in a woman, and cortisol is high. What's happening here is we have a hormone called progesterone, and progesterone is this hormone that makes us feel super sexy. It's the hormone that makes us feel safe. It's where we have like our sensuality. And progesterone can either be, it's a precursor. So progesterone can either be converted to testosterone or it can be converted to cortisol. So when we have a lot of stress in our life, especially long-term chronic stress, progesterone favors that cortisol pathway, and then it's not being converted to testosterone, which is where we actually have our libido. It's very important for women to have testosterone, not just for libido purposes, but also for fat burning, for muscle gain. It's a really, really important hormone. And of course, we don't want it too high because then we're going into like androgen related hormonal disorders like PCOS, et cetera. But we do want a healthy amount there, especially in combination with DHEA. So DHEA is another male-based hormone or another androgen. And DHEA is our hormone of longevity. So it's the hormone that keeps us young. It has like this vitality to it. And I will often see in women like ages 30 to, 25, even to 40, that their DHEA is that of somebody over 60. It's like, holy shit, where is your life-giving force, women? And a lot of that comes down to the stress that we have. Now, I painted a picture for you in the beginning for a reason, not just to completely overshare, but so many things are going to cause stress in your life. Obviously, like having a baby and being responsible for that is one thing. Like money's going to cause stress, relationship issues are going to cause stress, but there can also be internal stressors, right? So if we have things like pathogens, parasites, candida, if we have hypervigilance, if we're taking medication, like all of these things just kind of add to the barrel, and the body develops this like chronic ability to just go into cortisol mode. Now, if cortisol is really high, if we're in that stress response, that fight or flight, we're not producing sexy hormones, okay? Like from an evolution perspective, from a very primitive perspective, if we are being chased down by a bear, the body is not like, let's reproduce. The body's like, get me away from the bear as fast as possible. And it actually takes quite a while for the stress response to go down and for those hormones to be able to come back up. And from an evolution perspective, the stress response really should only be about 15 minutes. Now people are literally in fight or flight all fucking day long. And so there's just no opportunity for the body to feel safe enough to be able to release these like sexy, good feeling hormones to create sensuality and allow you to actually, have a libido and want to engage in sex, especially because, and I'm going to over exaggerate here, but so many of my clients have anxiety. But if like we're constantly think we're in danger, if we constantly think there's something wrong with us or we're dying or we're going to die, whatever it is, like you're not going to want to bring life into this world. Your body is not going to be a vessel that's going to be able to support a baby. And, now we have so many infertility rates and we wonder why. Well, it's not just about like adding progesterone in or estrogen and balancing that stuff. It's like, what the fuck is going on in the nervous system that is creating this inhabitable space? And so I really always come back down to the masculine and feminine, but that testosterone, progesterone, cortisol pathway is a really important one. If cortisol is super high, it's a red flag for me. And if cortisol is super low, it's an even bigger red flag, because if cortisol is completely like flatlined, or if it's starting to flatline, then it means that you've been in chronic stress for so long and now you just like don't have anything left. And if you look at my Dutch test from like 2.5 years ago, I was completely flatlined. So it makes perfect sense. But the thing is, if you were to ask me at that time in my life, I would say I have tons of energy, but I wasn't running on true energy. I was running on adrenaline. And so when I started to recover my cortisol and work with the reasons for why I always felt like I was in danger, I got really, really, really tired. And I think that if you're listening to this and you're going through a recovery journey or you're healing and you're just exhausted, and there's a tendency to want to beat ourselves up, especially if weight loss is a goal, because we want to be productive, we want to go to the gym, but just know that like cocoon period, especially when recovering cortisol, is so important, because you're feeling the exhaustion from all of the years that you have been ignoring it. you have not been meeting your needs, which means the womb is not happy, my friends.
Hi, babes. I am so excited to talk to you about my signature program, the Mindful Method. This is the exact same method that I have been using with hundreds of successful clients to help you heal your relationship to food, to increase confidence, and to lose weight without dieting or killing yourself at the gym. If you're sick of not feeling like your best self, if you're sick of promising yourself that you'll start again on Monday, if you're sick of going on restrictive diets only to gain back the weight, I can tell you right now that if you gained it back, it did not work. You know what's healthy and what's not. You do. You just continue to choose the unhealthy option anyways. And a meal plan will not solve this issue. There is no amount of restriction or discipline or willpower that is going to stop you from self-sabotaging. The body follows the mind. Imagine a life where you don't have to think about what you can or can't eat. Imagine a life where you feel confident in all of your clothes, where every day in every way your body rebalances and you lose all of the weight so you find the truest, healthiest version of yourself. Imagine never having to start again on Monday. This is what happens when you focus on transforming the brain so weight loss is effortless. The body follows the mind, and it's time you actually get to the root cause of your issue. If you are ready to transform and find the truest, healthiest version of you without letting go of your favorite foods, I invite you to fill out the application in my bio. And if you're a good fit, we'll be in touch soon. Back to regular programming.
The other hormone that I want to talk about is oxytocin. So oxytocin is released when a female orgasms, and oxytocin is this hormone of connection. It's actually what makes us connect to another partner and fall in love with somebody. And it's this very sexy, fun, intoxicating experience. And oxytocin, though, has a really cool feature where it actually has the ability to regulate all of your hormonal processes. So I can't remember what book it is that I read, and I also heard her on a podcast, but she recovered all of her chronic conditions. I'm talking autoimmune disorders, chronic infections like pathogens, parasites, etc., literally with masturbating alone. And the times that I started to regain my health from chronic fatigue, from all of those like myalgic encephalomyelitis, from all the shit that I went through, the times that I started to recover my energy, I was masturbating often. And there's a huge, because as we release that oxytocin, it's just rebalancing everything. So if you're going to take one take home, ladies, let it be just masturbate more often. And I actually think that this is an intimate thing. So if you have a partner, that's fine. You can definitely have sex more often, but it really is for you to get your libido back. This is not to blame the people outside of you. Like, for sure, they influenced and maybe why the libido isn't there in the first place. But this journey is about you and you and your body and you and your womb and you and your pussy or your yoni or whatever the fuck you want to call it. And so it's very important that you develop a very safe and loving and healthy relationship with it. And what that can look like is, Jamie, my mentor, has me do something called sacred touch. And so with sacred touch, I mean, it can end in something like masturbation, but it doesn't have to, because really what sacred touch is being able to connect with your body in a way that feels safe and that allows it. There are so many traumas and emotional experiences that we have that get stored in the body. We know trauma is stored in the body, right? And so really it starts with asking consent. So like, you literally have to ask your body, is it okay if I touch you here? Is it okay if I touch you here? And you just kind of like move down. And the first time that I did this in the bath. And I finally got to a place where my body was allowed me, I had consent to touch, like, my inner thighs. And it was so interesting because I remember I had a very vivid memory come back to me that I actually don't ever think I processed. Like, I don't ever think I remembered it in the first place. And it was just like a flash, and it came to me, and it was when I was a baby. And I'm not going to get into the memory because it's super personal, but it, like, I was like, oh my God, I didn't even know that happened to me. And it makes so much sense now. And oh, I have shivers talking about it actually. And that memory was like literally fucking stored in the tissues of like my yoni. And I would never, and even just being able to go there and hold space for that allows that emotion, that memory, that trauma to kind of move through. I should probably say, as a disclaimer, especially if you've had sexual trauma, that you might want to work with a professional. Definitely, you don't need to attempt this alone. I don't want anybody re-traumatizing themselves, but I am a firm believer in your relationship to yourself and your body is like the most important relationship you're ever going to have. And if you don't ever look at yourself in the mirror naked, if you can't touch yourself, if you like, we've got a big fucking problem here. Okay. Especially if you want to have kids and you don't want to like pass that like shame onto them, you know? So sacred touch is also womb work, sacred touch, run a Dutch test. Another key component on the Dutch test that I'll look for is if somebody has estrogen dominance. So if they have really a lot of estrogen and they're not detoxing it properly or metabolizing it, estrogen is going to affect so many things, but estrogen is the hormone that makes us hold on to weight and grow. And so when we have really high estrogen, the liver releases something called thyroid binding globulin, and it binds to the thyroid. And you're not going to see this on a typical blood test. So you might run a thyroid test. You might say, I'm gaining weight and I have no energy and my libido's down and I'm losing my hair or my hair is dry, whatever it is. And you go to the doctor and you do a test and they test you for TSH and they're like, everything's fine. Well, first of all, thyroid stimulating hormone comes from the pituitary, not from the actual thyroid hormone. So all we're looking at is how much the pituitary has to stimulate the thyroid to release thyroid hormone. Now the thyroid's going to release a bunch of hormones like T3, RT3, T4, but the liver, if estrogen is high, the liver is going to release something called thyroid binding globulin, and thyroid binding globulin is going to bind to the thyroid and it's going to make that thyroid hormone not accessible. Like you're not going to be able to use it. Also, high cortisol is going to do the same. And the reason why I'm talking about the thyroid is because it really is where we get our source of energy. So if you're fucking exhausted, do you think your body's going to be like, yeah, let's procreate. I have the energy to like get on top today. No, super no. So yeah, I mean, I think that running a Dutch test is a really good first step if you're interested from a physiological perspective. Moving further in a physiological perspective, then we got to be like, well, why are the hormones messed up? And then we go into emotions, nervous system, et cetera, but also pathogens. So parasites and candida. Candida is going to lead to estrogen dominance, which is going to be a disaster. It's very inflammatory. You're going to, typically you gain quite a bit of weight. You have sugar cravings all the time, but it really is going to be interact with you being able to produce sex hormones. So when we have high candida, candida releases something called glucuronic acid. Glucuronic acid is going to bind to estrogen, and it's going to prevent estrogen from being released. So we just kind of reabsorb it over and over and over again. And I see this a lot when I'll run a food intolerance test for clients that test for candida. And like literally like clockwork, it's like a puzzle piece. I see high candida and I see high estrogen and I'm like, boom, like this is the root cause, right? And so when we have, again, too much estrogen, it's going to affect the way the thyroid functions. It's going to affect our energy. It's going to affect the way we think and feel about ourselves. We're not going to feel very sexy when we feel overweight, when we don't have a relationship with ourselves, when we can't stop eating sugar. It's just like a whole clusterfuck of issues. And then parasites are very similar, but parasites will like literally hijack the hormones. Parasites fucking love the ovaries. And when I see women with PCOS, I often see period parasites. A lot of the time the ovaries will create these like pockets, like cysts over something that shouldn't be there. So it's like a protective mechanism, but especially hookworm loves the ovaries. So if we have parasites basically stealing all of our energy from the ovaries aren't going to be able to function as well. And there are some parasites that just love the nervous system too. So then we're not releasing things from the pituitary properly. And so it is. So from a physiological perspective, run the Dutch test. The main key players here are testosterone, progesterone, cortisol, oxytocin, which is not going to be on the Dutch test, but that's like through orgasm, and then estrogen. And from the second physiological perspective, we're looking at root causes for that: parasites, candida, pathogens, etc. Now, let's go into the emotions and the feminine and the masculine balance, because this has been honestly my biggest focus in the past year, I would say. And it may even be a reason why my marriage didn't work out. But essentially what happened was, I had my son really young and I went very into the masculine role. I pushed myself, and this is not because of my partner. This is actually because of my daddy issues. My dad was always, where's the other 2%? Like, has to be perfect, overachiever. Even now, he's like, what are you doing? How much money are you making? Da, da, da. When are you going to be a doctor? And I'm like, fuck. So I definitely started there. And then I just like manifested a situation that would keep me in my masculine, because when I am in my masculine, or when I was in my masculine, it felt safe because it felt like I had this false sense of control. It was like, as long as I'm doing everything perfectly, like actually perfectly, everything's going to be okay. But that's so fucked up. And so my poor ex-husband like didn't even stand a chance, because I didn't trust him enough to like take the reins from me. And there are other reasons for that too. But if I wasn't grasping at it, if I wasn't doing it myself, if I couldn't accept help from anyone. And I see a lot of women in their masculine. I didn't take a mat leave at all for either children. I had a C-section, and 2 weeks later, I'm fucking back into work. Granted, if I'm the main provider in my household, yeah, like I kind of have to go back to work. But, if I was open to balancing the masculine and feminine at that time, I'm sure another solution would have arose for itself. But I was very, very stuck in my masculine. So my poor feminine, it's wounded masculine, by the way. It's not like an empowered divine masculine. My poor feminine had so little trust in being able to just sit back and receive. The way that the balance of the masculine and the feminine work, and yes, in a partnership for sure, like you and your partner, but I actually just want to focus right now on the balance of the masculine and the feminine between you and you, because we all have masculine and feminine energy. So the way it should work is our feminine is like, I have an idea. I want something. I want to experience something. I want to like receive something. And then your masculine energy like goes and does it. And then your feminine receives it. And what I often see where the disconnect here is, we will go, I want something. And then our masculine energy is like, I got to do. But we don't trust that it's going to come to us. So the feminine's never really in a place of like, I just trust that I can receive because I've done everything I can. And it's not even that the masculine energy has to do. It's the energy of a protector, provider being held that allows the feminine to receive. I'm going to explain this with a money example, because money is very, very tangible and easy. So a little while ago, I needed to manifest a large amount of money. I think it was like 30 grand. And I was freaking out because it was like it had been such low sales months for a while. There was a lot going on, like divorce was really new, and everything was just everything in my life had just kind of blown up. And so I was like, okay, I kept finding myself in these places like month to month where I would have to like call on God or universe, or like somebody has to fucking save me out of the situation. I'm going to have to manifest a one-on-one client, which like I don't have the space for right now. Like I love my one-on-one clients, and the amount that I have right now is perfect. So even just me thinking at that time, if I just manifest a one-on-one client, like is so contradictory to what my actual needs are, but my feminine didn't trust my own masculine energy to bring that money to me. And so she just started freaking out. How am I going to get it? Where's it going to come from? What do we need to do? Do we need to put out a new offer? And it's just like, we'll put out the offers, but then we're still not sure it's going to come through. Like that is the imbalanced feminine. That's the feminine not being able to trust her own masculine energy. I'm going to paint this picture for you. This is a metaphor that I got from one of my mentors. So I wish I could take credit, but it's not mine. So we just had the Cancer new moon. Crabs, like Cancer, have this hard outer shell. And the hard outer shell is like the masculine energy. It is protective. It's strong. And it allows the soft female energy to kind of like do its thing, flow around, move around, because it has that protective barrier. So the feminine energy feels safe to just like express and be and live and receive. Another way to put this is in Japan, where they have a lot of earthquakes, they build their houses for the earthquakes. Like they build their house structures to be able to withstand earthquakes. So the masculine energy is like this strong structure that's genuinely built for Mother Earth to do whatever the fuck she wants. And so Mother Earth's moving around and the structure's like, no, we're strong. I got you. We're holding you up. And so we all have this balance of the masculine and the feminine energy in us. So how we can tap into healing our wounded masculine and our wounded feminine within us is being able to feel held and protected within our own energy. So I like to actually take a breath and like sit in this energy. And this, I've been doing this a lot and it's fucking changed my life. Like truly, I can actually feel the activation in my womb because it's like, oh my God, I feel safe. So I can create, I can have fun, I can experience, I can receive. Like this has been one of the highest sales months we've ever had. And all I've done is do the masculine and feminine balance thing. So if you're listening to this and you're an entrepreneur, don't overlook it, okay? I want you to imagine that you have problems all around you and the hand of God, or like just whatever you believe in, picks you up and you go to sleep in their hand and he just holds you and he's like, I'm going to figure all of it out. And just that energy of being like, whew, I can just rest and receive. I can just rest and trust that like it's all going to get done. That is being in your feminine and trusting your own masculine energy. So do you see, like, it's not that you have to do more or the masculine energy has to actually, doing more would be contradictory unless you're literally doing nothing. Even just having the idea, the thought of something that you want and trusting that your own masculine is going to take aligned action when it feels intuitively aligned is all you need. But being able to feel safe within yourself of, I don't need anyone to save me. I don't need anyone to rescue me. I've got everything that I need because my masculine's just going to figure it out. Like my masculine's just going to bring it to me. And so now I'm just chilling here. And it actually changed my life. So anyways, as we balance the masculine and the feminine energy, start with yourself. And then as you build that safety and trust within yourself, and you just know, like, you're not reliant on your partner to be able to be in his full masculine and protect and provide, like they are going to naturally meet you where you're at. You are going to be so strong and magnetic and protected within yourself that you're going to manifest situations that mirror that back to you. So if your partner or husband like works and you stay at home or whatever, maybe you both work, but there's money scarcity, even though both of you work, you being able to feel safe within your body is also signaling to your partner that like everything's okay. And they are going to manifest easier without them even having to do the work. Okay. And trust me, things are going to get a lot sexier. So you're very, very welcome. There are supplements. Finally, we'll talk about supplements. There are supplements that can help with libido for women. Tonkat Ali is my favorite one to use. If you find it, it's going to be marketed towards men. Don't worry about that marketing. I actually did a podcast interview with a company that produces it. I will put it on social media for you guys, or maybe we'll put a link below. But it's used a lot with women going through menopause and in quite a high dose, because it's not just going to give you testosterone. It's actually working. It's a modulator. It's like an adaptogen. So it's working on balancing all of your hormones, including DHEA, progesterone, testosterone, and estrogen. So it's great for weight loss, but it's also great for recovering that libido. But the reason why I didn't start with the supplements is because, like, this, you can take fucking everything in the whole world, but if you have parasites, candida, leaky gut, if your relationship is a disaster, if you're constantly in a state of hypervigilance and you don't trust yourself and you don't feel safe, then like it doesn't fucking matter. None of the supplements are going to work. Okay. Which is what I was doing before I started to actually heal my relationship to myself, my body, my womb, etc. The other supplement that is, again, pretty rudimentary, but is so helpful is liposomal C. Liposomal C is going to help with cortisol and balancing cortisol properly. I mean, you can take regular vitamin C, but liposomal is the most direct way to receive it. And you also want to take zinc. Zinc is great for the immune system. You could also take ashwagandha. Ashwagandha is another adaptogen similar to Tongat Ali, where it's working on stress and testosterone and actually thyroid. So a lot of people use it for performance, and not just sexual performance, but like performance in sports, as well as Korean ginseng. There was a while where my ex-husband was taking like ginseng, ashwagandha, gotcha cola, and vitamin B at the same time. And I swear to God, he had a boner for like 3 weeks straight. It was crazy. I like low key started to like hide the supplements because like I can't even handle this. Now maybe it would be a different story, but yeah. So if whether you're a male or female, all of these herbs are going to work for you guys. If you're a male, tribulus is a pretty good one. I've never used it for female, so I can't give you an honest opinion on that. But of course, if this is something you're dealing with and you want, like, I would suggest you get actual help, because this is not just an issue of like a deficiency. Like, this is very deep. This is related to trauma, our unmet needs, our childhood, our relationship to sexuality, our relationship to pleasure. Do we allow ourselves to engage in pleasure? Or do we think it's like taboo? You know, do we think we're bad for doing it? So hopefully you guys learned a lot today. I feel like I blacked out and just fucking spit out a whole bunch of shit. But I love you guys. If you like this episode, don't forget to like and subscribe and share it with somebody who might need it. I also would love to hear about how you guys are healing your relationship to yourself, your womb, your sexuality, your libido. Hit me up on Instagram or any of my socials. I love you guys so much, and I'll see you back on another episode of the Mindful Method podcast. Bye.